Hello guys, welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to be talking about two-way data binding in Angular. And for me personally, I feel like Angular is one of the hardest frameworks to understand, unlike maybe React or Vue, Next.js. Angular definitely has a steep learning curve, and one of the concepts or um, one of the few functionalities Angular has is what is called directives, and Angular also has other functionalities like decorators and so much more. But when we talk about directives, directives are simply ways you could it's like ways you could extend your HTML functionality. It's like an extended attribute to your HTML DOM elements. And as you probably know, Angular is a framework that allows you to create a virtual DOM, just like most front-end frameworks, because it's a lot faster than actually changing and reloading the DOM elements. So it only changes what needs to be changed. So now we're going to talk about two-way data binding, and to understand two-way data binding, we're also going to discuss one-way data binding. And to grasp the whole concept of all of this, we need to be able to differentiate between what is known as the model and what is known as the view in Angular. So the model, or you can also say the components, is where, so the model is where all the data, like you can say where all the data is stored, where you have metadata and basically how everything is supposed to work, whereas your view or the UI is literally what you see. So it represents the data that is being it's the data that is being displayed. So I'm not going to go through how to create an Angular project, but if you already, I hope you already have one and you already started a server, and it's gonna look like this once it's already started, and this is where everything we're doing is gonna be shown. And so let's begin talking about how we can pass information from our components to our HTML, that is our view, and vice versa. So now, as you can see, I just have an empty HTML document. There are no elements. I only have a div class, and in my components I only have my component decorator, and the template URL specifies to what the HTML file. Yeah, and I could also have an inline template here, but I prefer to use a different file for my HTML file. So we're gonna start by navigating to our HTML file, and we're gonna create some elements. We're gonna put some elements here, and the first thing we're gonna want to put is we're gonna put an h1 element, and h1 elements, and we're gonna add, let's see, we're just gonna say hello world to start with, and I save that, and when I reload this, so we see we have a hello world here. And but since we're talking about one-way data binding, basically what we want to do is that we want to do something in this HTML file that is going to reflect in our components, or actually vice versa, because we're going to be sending value from our we're going to be sending data from our components to our view. So that's what we're going to be doing. And when you send data from your component to your view, that is called property binding. So we have two types of one-way data bindings. We have property bindings and we have event bindings. So property bindings are or is when you send data from the component to the view, and event binding is when you send value from the view to the components. So now let's look at how something like that can be represented. So we have an h1 element here. So what we can do is that we can create a basic inputs. So if I create an input and type text and the ID, no ID yet, and also that we can make it disabled. So when it's set to disabled, that means we're not when it's disabled, that means we're not going to be able to click anything. So we're not going to be able to enter text. And if I remove this disabled, you're gonna see that now suddenly we are able to add text. So now the whole purpose of this is to show that we can change, or we can somehow send data from our components to our HTML file, that is from our model to our view. So now I'm just gonna create a simple boolean value in our component, and I am going to call that is enabled, and it's going to be a boolean, and I'm going to call it false. Right. I'm going to save that. So nothing has changed yet. It's still, because I removed the disabled, so we're still able to enter text. But what I'm going to do now, if I set disabled, and now to create property, so the syntax for property binding is to add a simple brackets, or you could just say square brackets, and then I'm gonna set that to the data, so which is enabled, and it's enabled. Yeah, it's false. So I haven't saved that yet, and you can see here that we can still enter the text, and we don't want to be able to I'm trying to send data to the HTML, which disables the input box. So right now it's currently is enabled, the value of is enabled is false, and I want it to be false here. So I'm gonna save that, and let's see what our changes are. All right, so actually that should be maybe we should change this to is disabled, or I could just change this to true. So is enabled true, and I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna reload this, and as you can see, it's disabled, but the language there isn't quite correct. It should actually be is disabled, to make it grammatically correct. Is yeah, and now that should work just as expected, and that is basically all it is when it comes to property binding, because now, as you see, we're able to send data from our model to our view. The next thing is we're trying to send data from our value from our view to our component, which is called events binding. So events, so literally something has to happen, and maybe a user enters an input, and we want that to be registered in our model. So what we're gonna do now is I'm going to create a simple button here, and I'm just gonna create a button here. And now, unlike square brackets, which is the syntax for property binding, the syntax for event binding is yeah, is just the usual brackets. And so on click, so I'm gonna, when I click that button, I created a function on click, which is gonna, yeah, but now that is underlined because I haven't defined this function yet, so which I'm going to do here. And so when we click this button, when we click the button, we want it to be able to do something, and I'm just going to make it log something to the console. Button, let me make it all caps, has been clicked. All right, so I'm gonna save that, and this should be registered. Then I'll click. All right. Oh, I forgot. Yeah. So now let's see what changes we've done. And we have a button here. If I click it, you can see it says button has been clicked right here. So now we have gone through property binding and event binding, and but so the problem with this is that we can either send data from our component to our view, or from our view to our components. Like, we cannot do it at the same time. If we're trying to do it at the same time, then we have to utilize a completely different directive, which is called ng model, and that is a built-in directive in Angular. And so to do that, we have to I'm going to create a new h1 element, and I can make it h2 elements so I can differentiate. And let's just start by saying let me just say hello, so we can be sure that, let's say, yeah. And now I'm just gonna add, let's see, because I want something to be here, like I want the text, I want to change the text here from our components, from our model, and that text I want it to be let's see, it's gonna be, I'm gonna name it title string, and I'm gonna call it custom text. Right. Nothing, I haven't changed anything really in the view, so let's go back, and now I am going to replace hello with and it's two double brackets, and I'm going to two double curly brackets, and I'm going to replace that with title. Now let's see what happens. As you can see, it's custom text, and now I have I'm going to create another input which is going to update this custom text as type, as the user types. So I'm going to create another input element here, input type is equals text, and for ng model we have curly bracket, square brackets, and then normal brackets, and we're going to type ng model, and that is going to be equal to title. Right, so now let's see what happens. All right, so as you can see, as I type here, it is immediately shown, or we're immediately changing the value of custom text. So that is literally all it is, or the basics when it comes to two-way data binding, because we're changing a value from our view, which is being sent to our components, and also vice versa, because our component is using that data to update the value of these elements. So I really hope you have a better understanding, and it's maybe easier for you now to understand and talk about one-way and two-way data binding. If you have any questions, as usual, kindly leave a comment and like and subscribe if you feel this video helped you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.